Pro-life protection. Another court order sides with Texas's heartbeat law. Stalled economic agenda. President Biden tries to convince Americans to support his Build Back Better proposal. Afghan ambush. Worshippers become the target of coordinated attack. And responding to criticism. China defends its record on human rights. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, October 15th, 2021. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Eric Rosales in for Tracy Sable. The Biden administration says that it will ask the Supreme Court to halt the new pro-life law in Texas. The request comes after the lower court for the third time upheld the measure. The state bans abortions once a baby's heartbeat is detected. Last month, the nation's highest court allowed the law to take effect. The justices did not rule on whether or not it's unconstitutional or constitutional. The White House is under pressure from abortion survivors, supporters that is, to overturn the measure. President Joe Biden's multi-trillion-dollar spending proposal faces an uncertain future. So today, the president flew to Connecticut, trying to convince Americans his plan, the Build Back Better plan, is the way to go. Critics label it as unnecessary, a dangerous expansion of government, and a money giveaway. White House Correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
President Biden traveled to a child development center in Hartford, Connecticut, telling people there that his plan would help make child care a lot more affordable, or in some cases even free. But opponents warn nothing is free, and sooner or later the bill will come due.
Leaving the White House, President Joe Biden walks over to Marine One right past reporters and later arriving in Connecticut, promoting his plan to reduce or eliminate child care costs for families, all part of his Build Back Better agenda, paid for, the White House says, with higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy.
It's going to cut the cost of child care for most Connecticut families literally in half. No middle-class family will pay more than 7% of their income on child care.
The proposed massive expansion of the social safety net started out at around $3.5 trillion. But if it's going to pass through Congress, no doubt it'll have to be slimmed down considerably. Meanwhile, there's also the bipartisan infrastructure deal. It's around $1 trillion. It's passed the Senate, but it too remains up in the air.
The White House is also combing through a draft report from the Supreme Court commission it formed. The review did not recommend packing the court by adding more liberal justices, but it did suggest possible term limits. The committee is expected to finalize its report and give it to the president next month.
It is an assessment. It is not a recommendation. That is how it was been outlined from the beginning.
But Senator Marsha Blackburn tweeting today, the Democrats want to turn the Supreme Court into a super legislature to implement their radical wish list. Meanwhile, the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy. President Biden tried to get rid of it, promising a more humane system. But it's being implemented again under a court order. The Catholic Legal Immigration Network, or Clinic, earlier called the policy an assault on human rights and U.S. asylum law. But Republican lawmakers have demanded the Biden administration do more to enforce national security and solve the border crisis.
Also tonight, on the debt ceiling front, all clear for now. President Biden has signed a bill into law raising the nation's debt limit. It's only good, however, until December, and then lawmakers might be right back at it again. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Joining us now is Zack Smith, legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Zack, welcome back. As we know, the Biden administration plans to ask the Supreme Court to stop the Texas abortion law. What sort of response do you expect from the justices?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Look, it's kind of ironic that the Biden administration is taking this issue to the Supreme Court. It's going to go to the court on an emergency basis, which means the court will consider it on its so-called shadow docket, which is really just its emergency motions docket, something which unfortunately has received a lot of criticism lately. But you mentioned it before. This is not the first time this issue has come before the Supreme Court. It's not the first time this issue has come before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which just issued its injunction that would allow Texas's law to remain in place. So I suspect there's going to be a lot more litigation surrounding this bill. But I think for now, it's a good sign that this bill can remain in place.
Another question, why has the Texas heartbeat law remained in place so far, and what are the lower courts saying about all this?
Well, The Texas Heartbeat Bill has several interesting procedural features built into it. Several district courts have tried to stop that law from taking effect. Judge Pittman, a federal district court judge in Texas, wrote a very scathing decision earlier this week prohibiting the law from taking effect. But fortunately, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal intervened, basically overruled Judge Pittman, said the law could stay in effect for now while the courts consider the merits of this law, the merits of the legal issues. And so, again, I think that's an encouraging decision. And so far, the Fifth Circuit and the Supreme Court, the last time it heard an emergency appeal based on this same law, but with different parties, basically said for now, the law can and should remain in place while the courts work through these very important legal issues on the merits.
And in your opinion, will the request from the Biden administration to have the Texas law, will it have any effect on any major pro-life issue before the court, such as the case in Mississippi where the justices are set to hear arguments in early December?
Well, this bill is, as I mentioned, coming before the court on an emergency basis, which typically means there's not as much briefing. The justices typically don't take as long to consider the issues. And so I suspect really a lot of these same issues will be dealt with in a much more substantive sense when the court does hear that Dobbs case, which is currently set for argument on December 1st.
And it was exactly 30 years ago that the Senate voted to confirm Clarence Thomas, a Catholic, for the Supreme Court. Now, the Associate Justice, once famous for his quiet demeanor on the bench, has become increasingly outspoken. Can you tell us more about the significance of his tenure?
Yeah, Justice Clarence Thomas's 30 years on the court has been a great thing for our nation. Justice Thomas has been consistent in his commitment to the Constitution, consistent in his commitment to making sure that judges should faithfully interpret the text of the Constitution, the text of the laws as written, and not impose their own value judgments on the American people. He's been a consistent voice on the court for judicial restraint, for faithfully applying the laws and the Constitution as written, and I hope he stays on the court for many more years to come.
Well, we know that you folks over at the Heritage Foundation are staying on top of a variety of other issues. What other issues are you working on?
Sure. Well, one of the big developments today was the Biden Supreme Court Commission released a draft report. They were holding hearings today to consider several proposals, including court packing. Now, the commission said membership was divided on the issue of court packing, which is just adding justices to the court in hopes of getting more politically palatable outcomes or favorable decisions. That's a very bad idea. It's a very dangerous idea. The last time it was seriously considered was the 1930s with FDR, and even then his own party categorically rejected any notion of trying to politicize the courts, and I'm hopeful that cooler heads will prevail and the same thing will happen today.
Well, Zack Smith, legal fellow for Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for your time as always.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Oklahoma's Supreme Court is also handling lawsuits that challenge pro-life protections. A judge has already upheld 3 of Oklahoma's 5 new laws, which are set to take effect on November 1st. Abortion advocates want to block those 3 during ongoing litigation. A Catholic pro-life lawmaker in England has died after being stabbed during a meeting with voters in a church. Conservative David Amos had been a member of Parliament for South East End since 1997. He had been a lawmaker since the early 1980s. The 69-year-old was stabbed while meeting with people at a Methodist church in the area he represents. Liberal and conservative politicians are expressing shock and sadness at the attack. The 25-year-old man has been arrested. No motive has been released. Another Shiite mosque in Afghanistan has suffered a deadly bombing. Today's attack in a southern province killed at least 47 people, wounding scores more. At least last week, that is, 46 worshipers were killed by a similar attack in a northern province during Friday's prayers. Russian President Vladimir Putin, that is, urged a group of states formerly associated with the Soviet Union not to be in the rush to recognize the Taliban.
Количество только игиловцев на севере Афганистана насчитывает.
The Russian leader was speaking at an online summit for the Commonwealth of the Independent States. He calls for the delay over concerns the Taliban remains committed to attacking religious freedom. President Putin also says that the group may not be committed to ending Afghanistan's lucrative drug production.
共产党创造了尊重和保障人权的伟大奇迹。
A senior Chinese official defends the communist nation's human rights record. Last week, a former security official described how the CCP mistreated Uyghur Muslims. With China hosting the upcoming Winter Olympic Games, some are calling for an international boycott. Prayers are lifted and questions are raised after yesterday's deadly residential fire in Taiwan. At the charred building, Taoist priests prayed for the 46-year-old people who died. A leader in Taiwan wants an investigation into the cause of the blaze, which left another 41 injured. Police are questioning a female from the building who allegedly kept flammables carelessly in her room. Coming up, World Day of the Poor, how Pope Francis plans to mark the moment. And Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, learn about the purpose of the global movement. Welcome back. Pope Francis will visit with 500 disadvantaged people during his trip to Assisi next month. This is part of the 5th annual World Day of the Poor, which this year is set for November 14th. The theme, the poor you will always have with you. Those words were taken from the Gospel of Mark. A group dedicated to praying for peace in the Middle East just wrapped up 2 days of meetings in Rome. The Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast features political and faith leaders from around the world. Each year, the group gathers in Jerusalem to pray for peace. Its members include lawmakers from the Israeli parliament and a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Joining us now from Rome is Albert Veksler, director of Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast. Albert, thank you so much for joining us. Now, tell us more about Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast and how it all began and who's involved in it.
Well, it's a joy to be with you, Eric, and I'm really excited about what Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast is and has accomplished. It started in 2016 when a Knesset member, Robert Ilatov, was appointed by the Speaker of the House to become the chairman of the Christian Allies Caucus. In short, his new task was to promote relations between Israeli Knesset and the Christian communities worldwide. So I was doing my PhD project in the Knesset, and so he approached me and asked for my help. And he asked me to give him ideas how to unite, how to create a bigger alliance of those Christians who love Israel, love Jerusalem. And I said to him, look, if you want to do a bigger project, we need to have a prayer breakfast. His first response was, it is impossible. Don't you understand? This is the Jewish state. Do you expect us to pray to Jesus or something? And taken back a little bit, I told him, look, there are things that the Jews and the Christians actually can do together. For example, both agree about praying for the peace of Jerusalem. As the book of Psalms says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, may they prosper who love you. At first he was taken aback, but then he had spoken with the president, then President Reuven Rivlin, who was very excited about the idea, and he said that he will host it, which he actually did. So on the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem, we were all gathered at the president's residence in Jerusalem. We were able to gather 570 people, leaders from 58 nations, to come to the president's residence. There was 200 founders, and then later on we gathered at the Knesset. We were received by the Speaker of the House. And I will never forget the words that the President said to all the delegates. He said, we have been longing for the prayers of the Christians for the peace of Jerusalem.
So, Albert, we heard that you just wrapped up 2 days of meetings in Rome. What did you discuss and why did you choose Rome?
Well, because the call to pray for the peace of Jerusalem was initiated from the Knesset, we always look to the legislators of different friendly countries to pick up that call. And Senator Simon Pilon was the man who boldly displayed the flag of Israel in the Senate during very difficult days in May. And he was the one picking up the call. And he said, I will host the Jerusalem prayer breakfast in Rome. We had a group of people who wanted to have it already many years ago. And now it came to fruition as the senator invited us to the Senate. And it was broadcasted live on the Senate channel. And we had so many different senators, Senator Matteo Salvini, we had Giorgia Meloni, we had several different political leaders like also Senator Lucio Malan that came together with his colleagues to officially and openly support the idea that Jerusalem should be recognized as the capital of Israel.
No doubt it was a wonderful experience. Again, Albert Veksler, Director of Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, thank you so much for joining us. Up next, Spanish prayer service, what the country is doing to focus on the new evangelization. And Holy Experience, how you can plan a pilgrimage without going overseas. On Sunday, our friends at EWTN España are holding a prayer service rededicating the country to the new evangelization. Bishop Ginés Ramón García Beltrán of the Diocese of Getafe will hold a Mass and adoration at the Basilica del Zorro de los Angeles up near Madrid. The services will be broadcast in Spain and Latin America. Earlier this week, Tracy Sable caught up with the head of EWTN España to discuss the initiative.
Joining me now to tell us more is José Carlos González-Hurtado, president of EWTN España. JC, thank you so much for coming on. Tell us what inspired EWTN España to hold this prayer vigil, and why is it being held at this particular basilica?
Well, the first thing to say is that it's almost 1 year that we are in EWTN Spain, so we thought it was the right timing to pray to our Lord for the new evangelization of our country. And with regards to the Basilica, that is the center of Spain. So you look at Spain and the map, right on the center, that is this Basilica. And this is where our king, more than 100 years ago, consecrated Spain to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. On top, there are several martyrs that were killed there, defending the statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and there are 5 of them. They are buried there. So it's a perfect place in the perfect timing.
Yeah, and as we know, Spain is a historically Catholic country which has defended and spread the faith throughout its history. But I know the population has become increasingly secular. Can you tell us how you hope to re-inspire your fellow Spaniards in their faith?
Well, it is. It's exactly as you said. I mean, Spain has been probably the country that was Catholic. I mean, we are now celebrating 450 years of the Battle of Lepanto, in which, Spain, with the Pope, pushed the Turks out of Europe. And, well, thanks to that, Europe is what it is still today. So, you know what? Our Lord told us, if you 2 or more get together and you ask our Father for anything, I will be there and listen. So we want to be significantly more than 2 and, not pray, but almost shout, go, come and help us.
Yeah, and as we know, I want to bring this up again, EWTN España was launched on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception last year. Hard to believe it was a year ago. And October is dedicated to the Holy Rosary. Can you tell us in what ways will you be praying for Our Lady's intercession?
Well, starting with that, I mean, the Rosary, as you remember, Our Lady gave it to Santo Domingo. It happens to be another Spanish important saint. So it is not by coincidence that we are doing this in October, the month of Rosary. And we will be having an adoration before the Holy Mass in the Basilica on the 17th of October.
Yeah, and before I let you go, today is Spanish noblewoman turned nun, St. Teresa de Avila's feast day. Can you tell us more about her life and why her spirituality is still so relevant today?
It is one of the amazing saints. Well, all the saints are amazing, but is one that actually created a new way in the Carmelites. And funny enough, on the same basilica that we are celebrating this on the 17th, there is a Carmelite convent, also built by one big saint, is Santa Maravillas de Jesús, which actually, took the spirit of Santa Teresa and brought it to the 20th century. Is one of the saints that was closest to our Lord. And if you read Santa Teresa, you can almost feel the love of our God.
Yeah. And JC, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers about the network in Spain?
Well, that we are pushing hard. I mean, we are so happy, actually, that EWTN came to Spain almost 1 year ago. Is so much needed, Tracy. As you probably know, I was out of Spain for more than 25 years. I came back to my country, and it's difficult to recognize several things. Now, the great thing is that we do know that we will win in the end, but it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to bring back the Spain that we all want.
Well, JC, thank you so much for your time and all that you're doing. We really do appreciate it. José Carlos González-Hurtado, president of EWTN España. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
And finally tonight, a pilgrimage to Rome or the Holy Land can be a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but traveling overseas can also be costly and time-consuming. One Catholic hopes to inspire people to go on a pilgrimage right here in the United States. Correspondent Mark Irons reports.
A faith-filled pilgrimage to Rome 8 years ago inspired Will Peterson to bring his experience back home.
And I was just set on fire.
Catholics have embarked on pilgrimage to places like Jerusalem or walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain. But Peterson realized you don't have to travel outside the United States.
There are places worthy of pilgrimage here.
He founded Modern Catholic Pilgrim. The group hopes to deepen faith and build community across the U.S. by organizing and promoting walked pilgrimage in the Catholic tradition.
Very ancient tradition for Christians, but feels kind of contemporary and new here because we don't really have a culture of it. So we're excited to be part of that development of the culture.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church states, pilgrimages evoke our earthly journey toward heaven and are traditionally very special occasions for renewal and prayer.
Pray for us.
Will Peterson says there are some established walks of faith you may not be aware of, including a New Mexico pilgrimage during Holy Week.
Chimayo is a great spiritual place in northern New Mexico where on Good Friday every year there's like 30,000 people who make walk pilgrimage there.
And there's the Wisconsin Way, a pilgrimage starting outside Green Bay at the Shrine of Our Lady of Good Help, a place approved as the only Marian apparition site in the country.
And what are we doing?
We're going to see Mary.
The Wisconsin Way was founded in 2013 by Father Andrew Kurz in the Diocese of Green Bay.
The pilgrimage from Our Lady of Good Help to Holy Hill is approximately 137 miles.
But a pilgrimage doesn't have to take days to complete, and you don't even have to leave your own community.
Choose a place to go, can be as short as a block away.
For the month of October, Modern Catholic Pilgrim is encouraging people to walk with the saints. Peterson says you can pray for the intercession of a local parish patron saint as you walk to that church.
Then the next time you're there for Mass on Sunday, it's going to kind of change your experience because you've journeyed there as a holy space. So I invite people to not make it too complicated.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
In Washington, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
What a great report there. Well, we want to thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Eric Rosales. Have yourself a wonderful night, and God bless.